Donald Trump showed up for his second term wanting to do everything, everywhere, all at once for his base. And so far, he doesn't seem bothered with following the rule of law or the Constitution. He and his Project 2025 backers have chosen to govern by executive order, 142 of them to be exact. If the plan was to disrupt, well, he's been successful at that too. But the longevity of these directives has been undermined by more than 200 lawsuits filed by various plaintiffs and over 70 injunctions issued in their favor by federal judges. Joining me now to discuss is Skye Perryman, the president and CEO of Democracy Forward, and Paul Butler, professor at Georgetown Law School and former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. So here's the game plan if you're Donald Trump coming in the door. You're going to do everything everywhere and all at once. You're going to create all these fantastic rabbit holes and people are going to go diving into them. And they're going to make a holy mess of everything involving the Constitution, the rule of law, and they're going to back lawyers up in the corner and just tell them, y'all just going to do pro bono work for me, right? But what we're finding now that all of that has come up against the good work that you've done at Democracy, what we've seen the Supreme Court come in and do. I'm going to put up for you guys the lawsuits against President Trump so far. Immigration federal judges have issued at least 19 orders halting or curtailing for now the administration's ability to conduct mass deportations, defund refugee resettlement programs, and restrict automatic birthright citizenship. Many of those rulings are currently under appeal. Birthright citizenship, as I noted, transgender rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion. 4 judges have temporarily enforced DEI orders there. Targeting political enemies, tariffs, trade. What do you make, since you're right in the thick of this, Skye, with a lot of these lawsuits, what do you make of the success and the possible back-end breakdown where appeals sort of don't go the right way and the system kind of weakens under the pressure?
Well, we're not seeing that yet. And I think that what we're seeing is that the president has so overreached and has also made a decision not to govern for people and communities, but just to go and run roughshod over people's rights. And what wasn't on that chart was also his funding freezes, where he just, sought to cut off funding across the country for everyone, and that's been blocked and that's been sustained. So I think the courts are showing that they are up to the task. Of course, we know that all appellate courts aren't going to see the same, things the same way. The Supreme Court is what it is, but we are seeing judges on Friday. We and another organization won another court order before judges that President Trump himself nominated. So we're not seeing that this is, really something about politics. It's really transcending politics because the president is just operating so unlawfully and beyond the pale.
Paul, Skye said the Supreme Court is what it is. I want to take note of the fact, as Politico's reported, the Supreme Court could be poised to hobble the Trump resistance. The Trump DOJ is asking the court to narrow the lower court's decision so that they only apply to the plaintiffs in the specific lawsuits challenging that order. Is she right? The Supreme Court is what it is, which means it may not necessarily be on the side of the American people.
She's exactly right. And we have to think about whether courts are equipped to respond to this crisis in our Constitution and in our democracy. So courts are very good at answering specific questions, like do Trump's attacks on law firms violate the First Amendment and the Sixth Amendment right to counsel? But courts are not designed to resist or to help the American people resist an authoritarian president who has no respect for co-equal branches of government. We may get an answer to the question about law firms, but it may take years. Courts are slow and reactive, and they defer a lot to the president on issues like national security and foreign policy. So, Michael, the main constitutional remedy for a lawless president with no respect for other branches of government is impeachment and removal from office. We know that's not going to happen with this Congress. That's why we have to turn our lonely eyes to the Supreme Court.
I want to push back a little bit on that because we are seeing these courts block the president, including at the Supreme Court. And I don't think anybody thinks that the courts are a silver bullet, but they are the tool that the American people have in this time. And we are seeing people use that tool, and judges all across the political spectrum, judges that were appointed by President Trump himself, appointed by Republicans, and appointed by Democrats step in. We have not seen the Supreme Court rubber stamp everything that has gone up. So I think there's a little bit of nuance
I think that's
there.
fair. No, I think that's fair. And I'm a court skeptic, going back to a number of decisions that have been made over the past year. And that's fine. I appreciate what you're saying. But at the end of the day, I guess the heart for me is, do we get to a point where we've been kidding over these walls, right? And it's been working? Do we get to a wall that the court puts up that's too high for us to get over as a nation, and then we're going to have to rely on something else? And the question is, what is that something else? I mean, this is the last piece here. If the Supreme Court comes back on birthright citizenship and says that was a crazy idea, no, that constitutional provision is unconstitutional. What do we do in that moment?
I think history tells us, right? The answer is we the people. And it is about the people. And I think you're seeing the people show up in court to defend their rights. But I also think that what you're starting to see in communities across the country, including in red states and in small towns, I mean, this is not just something in big cities and urban areas happening. You're seeing people energized. They're upset about what's happening. I don't know who they voted for, but they did not vote for this. And I think that energy is going to be imperative at every level, outside of the courtroom.